No, we're definitely on there right now.
Yeah, we're there. Hi, everybody.
Oh,
Sup, fam?
Okay, I guess we're live, and I should probably be doing an intro because I do those type of things. Hello, welcome to Gaytriarchy number 4, A Gay Hope is, I guess, what we're calling this one.
we are.
Are you a gay guy? Are you a guy? Are you somebody that is interested in the gender-specific issues of men and boys, in particular the gender-specific issues of gay men and gay boys? Well, then you've come to the right place. Do you not like feminism? Do you think that feminism doesn't speak for you? Do you think that feminism tries altogether too often to speak for you? Do you think that feminism has infested your spaces and communities and started holding them hostage, and it is rather uncomfortable? Are you afraid to say anything? Don't you worry, we'll say it for you.
Awesome mouthful.
I didn't, think about that on my walk home or anything.
Did you just come up with that stream of consciousness, or did you actually intend for that?
I was floating around the ether,
Princely ether.
Oh.
I like it. We should probably use that on a loop or something. Maybe with some like trap beats or something.
Maybe do it in like a movie man kind of voice, like more dramatic like.
Are you a gay man? Are you a straight man? Are you besieged by a world full of feminists, non-binary, gender non-conforming individuals, by visions of Riley Dennis? Gaytriarchy.
This summer.
So, yeah, on today's show, we had a few things that we were going to talk about. We also have a guest that I'm trying to ferry in here, but maybe he was stopped by the, the radical feminist overlords at the border, and he's being detained or something. I'm not really sure.
He's chained up in Anita Sarkeesian's basement right now.
No, he's just literally never been in a live stream before, so he's having technical issues. So there's a chance that maybe we should go through a few news stories, and that would be the best thing to do. Because yeah, we should go through some news stories. Oh, I did forget Bye Men, Dylan. That's true. Sorry about that. But yeah, maybe we should just go through news stories in the meantime, talk about those a little bit, do that kind of a format, and if he has something to say about something, well, like if he really wanted to talk about some news stories, he'll be like, "Did you hear about this?" And he'll be like, "Oh, we talked about that," and we can talk about that with him. But otherwise, he won't know what he missed, really. So how about that?
Sounds
How about
good.
that?
Yep.
Okay. So, should we begin with the image that we have on the screen right now, the first in the lineup?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
That's
well then.
probably the.
So who was the one who came up with the idea of Jesus was a gay gender fluid drag queen? Okay, well, then as the one who gave us this wonderful headline, you should explain it. Why don't you put it on the, can you put it on the screen? No, the actual article. Oh, then let's, okay. Well then, is it from Pink News? Okay. Well, yeah.
You guys want to take turns?
Okay, hold on. I have the guy's email. I'm gonna put it in the side chat so that someone can try to give him a call or something. Okay.
Okay, I'll do that. Bacon, you read.
Okay.
Was, as you said.
Huh.
I have
The
some comments. Oh no.
occurred.
I'm asking in the chat if anyone can still hear us. Can you guys still hear us? Let us know. I mean, because we can at least still keep talking if the video's not working, right? There's 2 people watching. Is that just me and someone else?
But I mean, I'm one of them.
There's
I-
more
mine
people
says-
on the podcast than watching it, literally.
I'm watching. No, I think that, okay, anyhow.
YouTube's throttling us. They're lying.
I mean,
So,
okay, I'm gonna try reloading.
Kevin Holly says he can hear us. Thank you, Kevin.
I don't think we're actually.
okay.
And Feral Cat can hear it. Thanks, Feral.
Those are the people that are watching.
Hey, they say the video is working too, so maybe it just needed a little bit of time.
Okay, maybe it's just on my end then. Okay, sorry, continue.
All right, wonderful. Can we just stop and dissect this concept of the drag kingly bride? I just back up a little bit. The drag kingly bride. So it's a kind of bride that's very much like a drag king, I guess, like a bride that acts at like, is it like a really demanding bride? Is it like a bride that was like, I'm trying to imagine. I don't even know. Like what? What's highly disappointing about this article is there's no citation of any verses at all. It references like John, it references like it's in this gospel somewhere, but it's like for anything theological, it's like, dude, you gotta cite the verse. Like there's no citations. Like, and that's really frustrating because that's, you know, the whole point of like writing it down in a book is that it's supposed to be objective and that you read the book and then like there's the same meaning. That's the whole idea.
I mean, can there be any kind of objectivity when we're dealing with an ancient book of essentially mythology by unconnected authors that are supposed by an invisible, all-knowing force that cannot be verified?
Yes. I'm atheist, but I'm extremely evangelical when it comes to Christianity. Like, I think the evangelicals are correct. Like,
Yeah, I don't.
like the so-called biblical literalists, like they just read the book. Like that's who I back in terms of Christianity. Like the Christians are right.
I mean, I
think the Pope is the Antichrist.
I grew
Sorry,
up. Yes, but you believe in the Antichrist?
No. I just think that like if Christianity is true, like that's the most like likely narrative. Also, there's this really, okay, so it's not verified. It's like some dude had like a vision or whatever, and it was something about a black hat and a white hat, and that's supposed to represent a Jesuit pope, and that's what our like pope is, right? And it's supposed to be like the final pope. And then the pope just came out recently and was like, hell isn't a thing, and it's like, dude, this is like that's pretty big. That's pretty crazy. I know. Like a lot of shit's lining up. I don't know. But to me, as an atheist, the most compelling argument in favor of Christianity is that the Pope totally seems like the Antichrist. Like the last one seemed like the Antichrist, but the new one, holy shit. Holy shit. But also, I think that the evangelicals are right.
Dude, I gotta tell you, I grew up in basically a Victorian doomsday cult. I have been through several apocalypses already. Those prophecies are so vaguely written, they can literally be applied to anything if you want to. They thought the world was going to end like right after Jesus was crucified, and then every time it didn't, they just kept pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back. It's like Life 3. They keep saying it's going to happen, but we all know it's never actually going to happen. But
you know what, Cats? I'll make you a deal. Okay, when the Pope dies, I'll buy you a bottle of something fancy, and we will dance on his grave. Or at least I will. You can join me if you want, but the bottle either way.
You roboted. What did you say?
You're a robot.
I was just joking.
Pope dying.
I was just joking. When the Pope dies, I'll celebrate. Is what I'm joking about. Like when the Pope dies and you're right, like I'll totally like celebrate with you.
Okay.
Cats, you're the one who's you leave and come back or something. That helps a lot.
Okay.
The time.
Okay.
So
anyway, we should get back to this article. But like anyway, any thoughts about what's a drag kingly bride though? Does anyone have an answer to that? I said we should bring on a bisexual woman, and you guys mocked me. You mocked me.
Why? When did you say that?
It was on the Twitter.
Oh God, you guys, our little group Twitter thing where you guys have posted like 400 times within the past 3 hours. Like I'm like, oh my God, I have no, it's okay. I can't read it all.
No, and I figured that like halfway through, but like yeah, we were all on at the same time, and you know how that shit goes with fucking social media style shit. It's just like explodes.
Yeah, once you have a more than a few hundred subscribers, and you are on Twitter, you start getting added to a bunch of like little groups, and some of the groups will go on. Like I've been in some groups that are like private DM groups that have been alive for over a year that people will still post in occasionally. One of them I like tried to leave and the guy re-added me. So I just like there's a lot of things that I just don't check anymore. It's kind of a shame. Yeah, sorry. I don't.
I mean, it's crazy though. So they're arguing though that the Book of John is not clear on whether or not Jesus is male or female. Like that's a core part of their argument. God, like I want to read the Bible now and be like, no way, like no fucking way did they not gender Jesus at some point. Like, I mean, is gender significantly different in the original language? I guess. I mean, it must be maybe a little, but I mean, there's still two genders is the problem.
Derek, let Bacon finish the
article. Ahead, sorry.
What?
Okay.
No, it is just okay. Yeah, hold on. let me insert myself. Like I haven't had anything to say about this because I am not A, I'm not a religious person. I was not raised religious. B, I didn't study religion. C, I didn't study philosophy. D, none of it interests me apparently, obviously. And however, I have definitely heard motherfuckers like over the years. Okay, our I know Katz was raised Seventh Day Adventist. What about you other two? Were you? I know. Spacepan was a philosophy student. Like that was what your degree was in. But Bacon, how about yourself? Okay, so you all have a little bit more of okay, so I guess none of you will be able to relate to what I'm gonna say all that much, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. So the thing is about me is that um people will go on these like weird trips trying to have these theories about what Jesus really was or like what Jesus really meant. And to me, I'm just like, why do you fucking care so fucking much? And it all just seems like I like somebody making fan fiction for a show that you never watched. It's just like, well, I don't fucking care anyway. Like, I didn't even watch West Wing. Like, I don't care what an alternate ending might be. Like what the fuck? And so one of the things I've heard over and over has been this like notion that potentially Jesus was maybe gay. Jesus was maybe a black lesbian in a wheelchair, like fucking whatever. And it gets a little bit tiring, but this one is just like the most it's like the people who were saying that, and I'm pretty sure they were saying it in the 1990s, like I'm pretty sure like that none of this is actually new. Those people had children, and now those people's kids have grown up, and like those kids, when they were 2 years old, their parents were talking about Jesus being gay, and when their kids didn't really understand it, but they absorbed it through osmosis, and then they wrote this fucking article. It's kind of what it feels like.
So, as arguably the one that was probably the most religious out of any of you, do you mind if I contribute now? Okay, so I am not religious now, but I grew up, with a religion level of over 9,000. It I remember being told in my school at the Y2K. Kids remember that one? Yeah, that Jesus was coming back then. And yeah, there have been a couple times Jesus is supposed to come back. So yeah, the whole gay Jesus thing, it's nothing new. This is perhaps the most in-depth, like, I don't know, like neo-Freudian kind of like, it reminds me of honestly some of those like just like intermediate film theory text from like a queer theory film theory class where like everything is just based on like subjective context. And I mean, if you want something to be homoerotic, then it will be. I mean, like, I think you all can attest to all the really crass, cheap homoerotic puns I've made about just ordinary conversation in a stream. So, and that's with, me trying to just be funny. If you're actually trying to be serious and you're looking at old religious text, I mean, that shit is old, strange, and not in any way related to like our modern life. So it can all sound very weird and homoerotic if you want it to, which clearly this person does. And I don't take offense to any of this because as far as I'm concerned, I mean, like, the Bible is, at this point, it's a book like Harry Potter. I really don't think it has any more truth to it necessarily than any other holy book. Or, I mean, like, either it's a good thing or it's a bad thing. The book as a whole is just an incoherent string of old stories, like written by a bunch of people, attributed to other people, and then, translated, retranslated, put together. Books were added, books were taken out. But like for this to be like controversial is I think the most controversial thing is not even this stupid interpretation of the text, but the fact that this person was even teaching at what sounded like, was it a Christian school he was teaching at? Oh God, it must be not be a very Christian call it, or they're trying to. I don't know. There are left wing Christians, but they're kind of a weird variety. Like either it's one of those weird lefty Christian schools, or they're trying very hard to increase their religious diversity.
Hey, Kat.
Oh yeah, it's probably a Jesuit or something. Then yes.
Could you call the guy that is our guest?
Uh,
Like how you called Moon before?
sure.
Because he's logged into the Hangouts. And if you, I think if we just call him.
Well, well, no, I never actually did anything other than just share the link with you on
Oh, you
Hangouts.
didn't do anything at all. Okay, okay.
No,
Please,
you literally just have
please call.
he just has to click on it.
Yeah, please call him like you
I've
did
sent
to
it
me.
to him several times.
I know. In email.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? Oh, well, we had to stop the stream to do that, though.
We did.
Yes.
To call the person.
To call, like when we called you,
Oh.
we had to stop the stream. Then I called you and added everyone back.
Oh God, that sucks. Hmm.
Yeah, well, I mean, like that was like the in case of emergency break glass option. But
Okay.
I guarantee you, all he has to do, if he has Hangouts on his phone, person, if you're listening, all you have to do, click on the Hangout link that I texted you.
Okay.
That's all he has to do, and the process should just go straight forward from there.
Because it didn't work for me.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I don't know. This sucks. I don't know what to say.
Are you on your phone or are you on your desktop?
I'm on my desktop.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I suppose you could try calling him on, like, you could try calling him on your phone.
Yeah, how about
like Hangout to
Yeah, hold on. I'll do that.
Wait,
I'll try to give him
okay.
some tech support.
Yeah. It's another great day.
Hello?
Cat's roboted again.
Okay.
It happens.
So I'm gonna take off my headset for a second.
He'll be back in greater numbers. I mean, damn, it's just like, what do you even make of this? No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus himself needs others to come with the Father. Like, how? Where? I want to, like, we need to find more robust versions of this. We need to find the robust feminist argument.
Attempting to make modern context about language on a translation of an ancient text that was written in a dead language is ridiculous. It's like, have you ever, basically what they're doing right now is they're trying to derive some sort of meaning from, like, have you ever taken like a song lyric, put it in Google Translate, and then translated it back into English?
Oh yeah, that's fun times.
That's what they're doing right now, basically. I mean, like, it's nonsense. It's at if you want to, if you are, spiritual, religious, and you want to derive meaning from this text, that's fine. Go for it. There are definitely lessons to be taken from this, like there are from any good stories. But at the end of the day, they're stories. Trying to be scientific about it is ridiculous. It's like if you try to. This is about the same as if someone was, doing a class on Harry Potter, and then they try to talk about how Voldemort was like, if they tried to make a like some sort of theory about Voldemort as if he was a real person and not a fictitious person. It's like you can make parallels about a character, you can draw lessons from them, but at the end of the day, they're not real. You can't be. It doesn't matter how scientific you are about them; they're still fictional characters. Sure. Oh, I was hoping we would talk about this. Mhm. Yeah, all the medical providers in the world are literally and figuratively shitting their pants right now, which, um, yeah, antibiotic resistant bacteria, it's something you hear about like on news stories and like fluff pieces, and people get a little scared about them and then they move on. But it's really um I mean, nursing facilities are already, I won't say overrun, but they're definitely struggling with a condition called MRSA, which is methicillin resistant staphylococcus. um it's a staph infection, but it's resistant to some of our more powerful antibiotics. And basically, once you get it, there's not really a great treatment for it. I mean, like, we pump you full of antibiotics. We try to basically make the symptoms manageable and then sort of hope that it just kind of goes into remission on its own. I mean, very rarely do people die from these conditions, but they basically have to be, monitored and treated for years. Some people, I've heard of rare cases where people had to basically, just stay under treatment or isolation for a very long time. Rhea, that's much worse than staph. So, like, the idea of having a gonorrhea that cannot be treated by antibiotics, yeah, that's really bad, because the thing about a staph infection is, like, I mean, it's, in theory, it's easy to transmit it, but gonorrhea is much more virulent, and it's much, like I said, having one that doesn't responsive to antibiotics, this is going to really affect, like, coming back to the gaytriarchy. Gay men, bad, because you can get gonorrhea anally or orally. So, like, if you're not getting tested regularly, and this actually does come to the rest of the West, which I'm sure it will, it's a big deal. All right, Cooper, come on. Wear condoms and get tested frequently. Everyone, but especially you, gay men. This is not something you want to fuck with. You may have it a long time or forever. This is Not quite on par with HIV or AIDS, but it can kill you. The disease is resistant to conventional antibiotics, means that unless there's a wonder cure, you're screwed. And even if there is one, it's probably going to be very expensive, and you might be on it for a long time. So yeah, be careful, people.
No, I'm here. I'm listening. It's really informative. I mean, it's really straightforward, but yeah, it's good messages.
I'm here currently too.
Ask me about the Aaron Carter article. Shit. The commentator.
Wait. I still have something to say. Yeah. I let's see a few things about gonorrhea and stuff. The only STD I've ever actually had was I think it was chlamydia or gonorrhea. Um and I think that they're technically bracketed as STIs. Cats probably would be able to correct me.
Yeah, STI is just the new preferred moniker for STDs, but it's exactly the same thing. One sexually transmitted disease, the other sexually transmitted infection.
Yeah, I guess that what they try to differentiate between is like whether it's a virus or if it's a bacterial infection or something.
Well, yes, because viruses cannot be treated with antibiotics. Antibiotics are for treating bacterial infections.
Yeah.
The easy way to remember this is you see the Activia, probiotics. Those promote good bacteria growth in your gut. Antibiotics kill bacteria indiscriminately, all bacteria.
So the one time I ever got an STD, so keep in mind, have I don't I've engaged in a lot of risky behavior in my life, but I have not engaged in a lot of risky sex in my life. I've engaged in a lot of sex, I've engaged in a lot of risky behavior, but I've rarely ever combined the two. Uh, Believe it or not, you get me intoxicated on things that I do not endorse doing at this point in my life, and I no longer do. Believe it or not, when I do such things, I tend not to start wanting to have sex with a whole bunch of people. I usually just talk a lot, is what actually happens. So,
how do you
but,
tell the difference?
huh?
That was a low blow. I'm sorry.
I don't get it.
Because you talk all the time, a lot.
Oh, yeah, well, no, you think that I talk a lot now. I don't know how people could like stand being around me, but somehow I was always very popular during that period. It doesn't really make any sense. Um, but okay, so this one night, I ended up. I'm not going to really say what I was doing and what exactly the circumstances were, but it was my friend's party. I'll say a very brief version of the circumstances. It was my friend's party. Uh, and it was an event, like a big. There were probably about 200 or 300 people there total at first, and I had performed at it an original song of mine. And then there was an after party that went on probably till I don't know, fucking like all day the next day, and people were just being crazy, and we had Bloody Marys in the morning, and there was like a sex room, like it was like one of these crazy San Francisco things that I never actually went to. I was not into that kind of thing, but my friend was the event organizer, and it was his birthday, and I just kind of ended up over there, and I just sort of did, and a lot of the guys were hot. Like it's not like they were not hot, and I just decided, okay, fuck it, I'm gonna do it, whatever. And so I went into the sex room and I took off all of my clothes except for my hat.
Oh, I remember this story.
And I just lied back and let guys suck my dick. And seriously, I lied like that for probably like 20 minutes, and I like different guys did, and I don't know how many it was. It could have been, 3, it could have been 7, like I don't know.
100.
um yeah, and I don't really know who they were. Like I didn't think about it, and there was no kissing. Nobody kisses at these things that are like that. It's all dick sucking and some butt fucking. And
Probably a lot.
yeah, and I ended up getting some sort of a gonorrhea, chlamydia just from that, and so it was like throat stuff, you know.
That's a chlamydia infection, I think.
Okay, yeah, and it's funny. The one time I do something like that, you know,
You got
it's
sexual
almost
karma.
yeah, it's almost fortunate that I got that little warning. But you know, to tie it back to the gaytriarchy theme, that's the kind of thing that you have to talk to gay men about and be like, yeah, why was I in that situation? Well, it's complicated. Hanging out with gay guys, blah 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 blah. You go and you talk to feminists about it, and they'll be like, oh, why did you feel a need to exploit your body in that way? And it's just like, you know, I don't really think that that's what it was all about. Like, I don't think it was my toxic masculinity making me feel bad about
What
myself. I think
was
it's,
it? Your intoxicated masculinity?
yeah, right. I think it's a little bit more like my intoxicated masculinity, and like, yeah. So.
Yeah, I was talking to Bacon about this earlier. I said, "What happened to the pro-sex feminists?" I think that was last night, wasn't it, Bacon? I remember there used to be the divide between the pro and the anti-sex feminists, and now it just seems like feminism has just decided that all sex is bad unless you're encouraging children to do it. Yeah, or you're two women.
Yeah, except for they hate lesbians because lesbians are all turfs according to them.
True. It, that's, I guess, the new form of blood sports, but it's not happening on the internet. It's happening like at women's conferences. The divide between the turfs and the gender deconstructionist feminists, because I mean, so I mean, like that's really it'd be hilarious if they had like a female version. If Magdalene Burns decided to become like the next Andy Worski and she hosted like.
That would be amazing.
Assuming that Magdalene Burns has the ability to like actually talk at all to a real person ever, which
No, she
I'm
seems
not
like
gonna. I am not the kind of guy to I don't use the word autist as a insult. I kind of side with Karen Strawn in that one. You know, I might have some family members who are autistic, and
it's kind of mean.
but no, but fucking Magdalene Burns is fucking autist. Like she is a fucking autist. There's no like there's something going on with that bitch.
Yeah, whenever I see her, I always think like, okay, did you literally just drink like an entire bottle of cough syrup? Like she has like the worst case of like, I don't know, like chronic narcolepsy I've ever seen. She never seems to have any energy. She always sounds like she's about to fall asleep. It's like
I love her. I know I love her delivery. I just love everything about like her style and everything, just the whole flavor and character and package. I just think she's marvelous.
I wouldn't even be surprised if we find out she's not even British. She's just sleepy all the time, and so she mumbles all the time, and we just think that she's British.
Dude, she could host a stream and she could be the host of it, and she wouldn't even have to be able to talk. She could just like sit there, and just like look surly, and just kind of like judge, and it would be fine.
Is she looking surly, or is she just like half asleep?
You don't even have to know.
She could have 400 viewers that would all be her with sock puppet accounts.
Mm-hmm. Magdalene Burns would actually like host her own like sex stream, like where she was stripping for her own sock puppet accounts, and there were no actual people there. That was funnier in my head than verbal, but anyway.
I say good on her, and y'all are haters, and I say she should keep on keeping on.
Can we excommunicate Spacepan now?
I'm
We
not,
are
you know, the
now.
thing is,
How is that the most
I,
offensive thing I'm gonna say?
I don't
It's not offensive.
I don't have so much of a axe to grind with Magdalene Burns anymore, just because I feel like I kind of won my little tiff with her pretty thoroughly. Like I won it back when I made the long expose turf video where I came up with the conspiracy theory that turfs are just like a thing designed to get transgender activism out of feminism because they don't have the budget for it anymore. And then they all left like then they all left me alone. And then I caught her lying in the video, and now they like really left
Oh,
me
that
alone.
haircut, that
Yeah,
haircut
about the
thing.
haircut thing where it was like, okay, you have to be lying because that would be illegal. um and
Yeah.
so now so now I don't mind if people want to be nice to her and throw her a bone.
Oh no, you can't throw her a bone, dude. Like that's like sexual discrimination. Like,
Yeah, throw her
yeah,
a
no,
taco.
you throw cans of albacore tuna at Megalopard. Go to Costco, send one of those crates like out to wherever the lesbians live in England. Like in America, they live in Portland. Where do they live in England? I don't know. All the lesbians in America live in Portland. Well known
Yeah,
fact.
yeah. There's actually a interesting article that was written. There are no lesbian nights in Portland, and good luck starting one. And they're like, so apparently there's literally no lesbian nights in all of Portland, or even lesbian bars. Um, why is this? Is that because every bar in Portland is basically a lesbian bar, or is there more to it? Well, yes, and yes.
They're all at home, like in their Birkenstocks, watching Portlandia, pretending that it's still funny.
Well, there, what the more to it part has something more to do with the fact that that you know something like 50% of all people period in Portland are lesbians, to the point where they had to start all calling themselves trans guys and non-binary, even if they're just fucking lesbians. And they started pretending to be offended by lesbian nights and saying they were turfy and stuff, and so they had to just all be these like weird inclusive parties. I don't know if you guys have
Those
you
are
guys ever
fun, I'm
have
sure.
you have you guys ever ended up at one of these like weird lesbian? It's okay, it's a lesbian party, but they won't call it that. They'll call it some sort of a inclusive intersectional party, but it's actually a lesbian party. But and it's a man hating party. Have you guys ever been to one of those? Oh,
I,
they're awful. They're the worst thing in the world.
well, lesbians. Well, I don't know if all lesbians. I mean, feminists in particular. But anytime I've ever been to a lesbian organized event, even if it's just a lesbian host, I'm sorry, girls, you're not very good at throwing parties. There's always just this weird kind of judgy, quiet. But you walk into the house and you feel like you're supposed to like take your shoes off, but no one tells you you should, and like it's just, I don't know, but
You probably
it's
wouldn't feel that way if you were a hot, masculine black chick.
yeah,
If you were Grace Jones and you walked in there, I bet you wouldn't feel that way.
true. I guess maybe that's just the way I feel as a man, but yeah, like yeah,
Like,
lesbian.
like you know what straight girls talk about? They're like, I don't know. If sometimes I walk into gay bars and gay guys don't seem kind of like they don't want me there. Like, oh, you
Well, of
think?
course we don't. Bitch, you ain't got no dick. Go away. Like, I don't know, but gay bars are dying though. I mean, to be perfectly honest, as much as I'd love to blame like the feminists for, I mean, yeah, they played their part, but I think Grinder didn't kill the gay bars, but it sucked the fun out of a lot of them.
Okay, can we
That and the and
okay, can I interrupt you for a second? Because chat's saying
No.
they can't hear me. I'm sorry. Chat, can you hear me now? Type
You
1 in the
can
chat.
turn yourself up in the Google Hangout thing. There's
You guys gotta crank it or shush.
I think I might have fucked up something in OBS, and I just corrected it potentially, so hopefully they can hear me now.
Chat, if you can hear all of us, say crank it or shush.
Who's this cunt in the picture?
That's Aaron Carter.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
that's
So-
our next
oh.
point.
Yeah, the one who pretended to be gay, like to be bisexual, so that people will feel sorry for him after he got pulled over for having a DUI or something.
Yeah, this
Then
is one.
Doesn't he have HIV or some shit too?
No, he thought he
Eh.
had HIV.
What if he's actually
But he
bi?
doesn't. It was a false flag.
Okay.
I mean,
Anyways,
if you-
can I make my point I wanted to make? And this is
Yeah.
literally the only reason why I even brought this up. So
Sure.
he came out as bi because some dude jacked him off when he was 17, and literally everyone who's in like the queer tea whatever website I'm getting this from, like fawned over him and like gave him all the praise for like a week, kind of like what they're doing with Adam Rippon, except for he's actually gay, and they did the same thing for him, which annoys me, like with the whole Adam Rippon thing. They keep giving him like awards and shit. It's like, you people fall over yourself every time anyone hints at being gay. It's like, being visible doesn't matter anymore.
I don't think that they fell over themselves because he was gay. I think that they fell over himself because he very publicly attacked Mike Pence. But anyway, keep going.
Well, and that's my point though. Is like him getting all this visibility bullshit is stupid because they fawned over this asshole just because some guy jacked him off when he was 17. It's like they've literally cheapened it to being, worthless.
I think the reason that everyone was so excited for like 3 seconds with Aaron Carter saying he was bisexual was because he was a visible celebrity, former tween girl heartthrob, and so you know how gays are. What's one of the most popular forms of gay porn? It's straight guys. And even most of the gay porn actors, like half of them actually are straight because we pay more. I don't know. Like, there's just we get all excited when it's like, oh, is he gay? Oh, I didn't know. But
So I actually saw Aaron Carter live, and I don't mean when you would think that I would have done that. I mean 6 months ago with Sister Danger.
oh, geez,
Oh,
was it a
God.
good show at least?
No.
Oh my God.
No, it was.
Were the tickets comped?
It was tragically bad.
Were the tickets at least comped or something?
Yeah, it was free. Her friend
Okay.
was in the opening band. Her friend
Okay.
was in this band that's like this fucking it's 4 straight guys who lip sync to boy bands from the 90s, and one of them is a legit choreographer who actually works with I don't know, boy bands or some shit. And so he started his own little project of these 4 guys where they come up with choreography, and somehow they ended up getting gigs. And it's funny too because the one guy's the choreographer one is actually a good band, actually a good. He's a legitimate. Okay, mute yourself.
Shut up!
So the one guy is a legitimately good dancer, and he's actually kind of hot. But the other guys are not really very good dancers and not really that hot. But you can tell that they don't really think that they are. They're basically just okay, we're just gonna make fools of ourselves and hope that girls get drunk and fuck us. And my friend's sisters said that it works. So. She's yeah, the other guys get laid out of it. It works.
So I think that this scathing comment kind of complements your story. It's Creamsicle wrote, so does that mean he's going to leave us alone and focus on rehab and maybe finding a career that doesn't involve holding on to a dead and rotting dream?
Well, no, okay, here's the thing I was really sad about the show is that he very clearly was drugged out. He looked like he was about to borrow from mundane Matt. He looked like he was about 99 pounds soaking wet, and he was wearing one of those really really baggy hoodies so that you couldn't really tell how fucking emaciated he was, and yeah, he looked like fucking trailer park meth, fucking heroin, and I feel
like an actual hooker.
I feel bad saying that. No, not. Well, yeah, maybe something like that.
Not an escort. I mean, the guy that you find on a street corner, driving around. But
Or
the
more
one
like
who,
someone that would be trying to sell someone's iPad to you outside of a fucking 7-Eleven or some shit. And
yeah, who might also suck your dick for $50.
if you're like, I'm Aaron Carter, I swear to God, I'll suck your dick, something like that. That's kind of what he looked like, and I was thinking about it, and the way that the music industry works is that people, because he started performing when he was really young, like he wasn't like 16, he was like 14 or some shit, because his older brother was Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys, and somehow they were like got a hold of his little brother too, and got his little brother to do it, and it was actually weird how young he was. And with record contracts, I think what happened is that he ended up, he must have signed something when he turned 18. And the way that contracts work, you have to end up paying back your label. They'll front you a bunch of money, but then you owe them until you pay it back. And so what I think he was doing was continuing to tour for them, even to this day, because he was not having fun performing, and there were no more than like 150 people there. There weren't that many people there at all. It was not a very big venue, and he seemed like he was kind of miserable, and it it was actually tragic.
that is sad.
Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like that's. I, I don't know if it's a legit, but like, sort of to come back to the story. Like Kesha, I don't know if it's true or not, but she says that she was like basically being like blackmailed by her producer under a kind of similar circumstance where, like, he fronted her money to get her started, and now like he basically felt he owned her or something like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it could have been. I mean, I think.
Okay.
Well, she said that like he drugged and raped her,
Yeah.
and apparently that was not unheard of with him. Like other women had said
Oh,
that he did things
that
like
is
that.
that's tragic.
Okay, so but do you want to move on to the real news of the night?
Oh my
let's
God,
move on.
no. There's so many things to talk about in this Aaron Carter article. Like, I'm sorry.
And let's
This
move
Aaron
on.
Carter. No, seriously. Okay, so this commentator here, right? Like, so part of his comment is Aaron Carter's like, I imagine myself being with women having kids, right? So like half of these commentators are like, everyone's pissed off because they're like, oh, he was just pretending to be bi to ride on our coattails and get fame and get famous, and now he's faking it to get double famous for attention. He'll lie about anything, and it's like, no, he fucking told the story. People fucking freaked out over it because reasons, and then he has to back up and be like, no, I just like shared one story, doesn't like mean this whole thing about me. And it's just like this perfect example of just like stigmatizing male sexuality, because like it really is the gay male, like the homosexuality and the male half of it that's more stigmatized than the female half. This is kind of a good example of that. But like what really pisses me off is you have this commentator here saying, so gay people can't make or have family. He's definitely stuck in stuff. It says stuff in the early 90s. They mean stuck in the early 90s. And then this other fucking commentator like blows up and pontificates about how he has internalized homophobia and self-misandry. It's just like,
What?
yeah, that's the fucking, man, if you didn't read the comments, you didn't read the article. That's one of my catchphrases. The comment section. I read the comments first, to be honest. I read comments and then the article, and then I go back to the responses to the comments.
Yeah, I'm over the whole internalized anything, really. I was watching.
I'm sorry.
Oh, say I was watching Feral Cat in the comments. He has a small channel, but he's brilliant. Honestly, like, he understands GayTown better than I do, which is sad and hilarious and inspiring at the same time. But he had his second video is about, one of the things he talks about is internalized homophobia, and how like the whole idea is based on people like and Farrell, you'll have to correct me if I get this wrong, but like internalized homophobia is basically based on the idea that like gay men are sort of conditioned to think of themselves as not men. And like whenever you do anything that's like masculine or rejects like quote unquote gay culture or LGBTness, they say you have internalized homophobia, because like basically acting like, masculine, acting like a man, that's being homophobic, that's being against LGBT.
Well, the gay men that say that are twinks and they need a dick in their mouth, so
They need two.
I'm just kind of amazed that the guy said that he had internalized misandry. I kind of like that, actually. I don't like that someone's saying that.
You should say that. You know, we need to say that to feminists. Like, you have internalized and externalized misandry.
It would be funny if you started saying that to lesbians, because they try to say that all homophobia is rooted in misogyny. Like, we could say that all homophobia against lesbians is rooted in misandry.
They would hate.
Their heads would explode.
I mean, we're dealing with the same people who say that there's toxic masculinity, but no toxic femininity. I'm dealing with people that hold consistent attitudes.
I remember when I think I did a response video to the ASAP Science dude who was trying to say that masculinity was gay or something, and he was like, "Oh, masculinity created the patriarchy and it created homophobia." It's like, then are you arguing that we're our own problem then? that effectively gay men created sexism and homophobia, and now you're bitching about it?
Oh my god, John Stoltenberg is like totally on that bandwagon, like on that shit. It's the funniest shit ever.
Hey, you guys, I gotta take a bathroom break because I just do, and I will be a lot more entertaining once I do that.
When you're not concerned about what's trying to get out of you right
Relieve
now,
yourself.
besides the truth.
Yeah, sorry, I have to go. I'll be back.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm trying to find Feral Cat's channel, and I can't do it. I'm searching YouTube Feral Cat, and like I'm searching by channels, and I just keep scrolling.
It's hard to find. His channel's very new. Go to my channel. I put him in my playlists and in my subscribers.
Oh, okay. I think I know where that is.
But yeah, anyone who's listening, go to Feral Cat's channel. Like, it's he only has like 3 subs right now. It's criminal. He is so smart, and his videos are just really pleasant to listen to, even if you weren't necessarily, interested in what he was saying, which you should be. Like, his voice is just he has one of those like could read the phone book voices.
Way to be fucking subscribed to Elliot Rodger, really?
What?
Fucking really? You're subscribed to Elliot Rodger?
Oh, I just didn't want to lose the videos. Like, they're sad and tragic, and I went to school in Santa Barbara, so watching those videos is really strange for me because I used to walk in a lot of those places.
Oh, that must be really weird.
It's incredibly weird. I walked through a lot of the same places that he made videos, and I was really I was thinking I might make a video about that someday, even though it's like super old now. But yeah, like, I mean, when I was in Santa Barbara, I can totally relate to how he was feeling because I was super depressed, and I was in this like beautiful place, going around looking at all the beautiful people, having fun times in the beautiful place, and I was miserable. I mean, I wasn't insane like he was, but I was still, I can relate to what he was going through.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, his videos, like, I just sort of like, they're definitely you can make the case for they're like more interesting in context than content. Like, when you watch them from the beginning, knowing where he was going, it's really ominous.
No, dude. Okay, did you ever watch the Randy Stair video?
I don't know who that is.
Oh my god! So I have the original. He was a brony, and like a pre-transition. Like, they thought they were transitioning, and like they had all kinds of a cocktail of all kinds of issues going on, and they ended up like shooting a bunch of people and killing themselves or whatever. But like, they made this video. There was this project they were working on. They kind of released like a half-finished version of it, and it's like an animated musical video thing about like a school shooting. It's really weird. The whole thing is super weird. It's like Inception level weird on top of just being weird. So it's like a yeah. That was a thing that happened like last year. That was the Randy Stair thing.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I know Medicare did a video on it, and then I think you can still find mirrors of the original video. Really, you should just watch the original video because it just stands by itself as just like the thing that it is. If you can't find it, I have it. And just like let me know, I can send it to you.
Okay, so we have the wife lady of the Orlando shooter being acquitted.
Oh my god, this shit is crazy.
Okay, so Spacepan, you want to talk about this one?
I mean, yeah, okay, so I suppose I can read some of it. His wife of the Orlando nightclub shooter found not guilty Friday of aiding and abetting her husband's deadly Islamic State-inspired attack and obstructing the FBI's investigation into the incident. The stunning verdict means that Noor Salman, 31, can go free, and that no one has yet been criminally responsible for the June 2016 massacre at the Pulse nightclub. Salman's husband, Omar Mateen, was fatally wounded in an encounter with police after killing 49 people at the club. As the jury's decision was read, Salman covered her mouth, then buried her face in her hands as her head dropped toward the table. So dramatic. Relatives behind her in the courtroom cried. Salman hugged her lawyers, then quickly whisked away at U.S. Marshals. Oh, I cried, I laughed, I ate a burger. Jesus. Okay, after hearing weeks of arguments and testimony in federal court here, jurors deliberated for about 12 hours. God, I don't fucking care. Okay, the prosecutors told Salman willingly participated in her husband's plot, even though she did not accompany him to the club the night of the June 12, 2016 shooting. They said she also repeatedly lied when the FBI interviewed her. By defense attorney's account, Salman was an innocent dupe, and the FBI took advantage of her lack of sophistication to persuade her to admit to things she did not do. That's the meat of it. So basically, the prosecution's arguing, hi, she lied to the FBI multiple times. She sees the fucker watching the video. She's like, oh, hey, I'm into the Islamic State. She's like, that's suspicious, or I guess not, because I'm retarded. And the defense is like, perfect. Yeah, you're just a low IQ, dumb brown person, and we're gonna be progressive and defend you. Like it's just like, it's so stupid. I just hate it so much. It's just like the voter ID kind of laws where they're like, oh, this is discriminatory because minorities can't get real IDs. It's too hard. Like, it's like the same
discrimination
kind
of soft expectations.
Exactly, and I'm so pissed that it worked. God, and it's the pussy pass times this. And then there was some people who came. I don't know if this article mentions it, but some people had like a protest like before the court or whatever, where they were like saying that the whole prosecution was rooted in patriarchy and Islamophobia, and it's like, go fuck yourself. Like, in the nation that's the nicest to you fucking people. Like, this is where by you people, I mean women. Okay, I'm not being offensive here. So seriously, it's just like such bullshit. At the end, that was so deep reading.
I mean, like, he, if I recall, his father was involved in those circles. I mean, she knew, what he was up to on some level. At the very least, he knew, and I think she tacitly approved, because that's in that culture, especially with that kind of a family, I think it's disgusting.
I don't really have anything to say on this point.
See, and I don't know if this is like a case where like the jury was like very strongly one way or unanimous, or maybe some just hang the jury, and like if someone hung the jury, like that would be a super shitty thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's why like speaking out against these narratives is so important, because that kind of shit is a reality. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to even be a dominant narrative in society. All this like SJW shit, like crazy fourth wave feminism, whatever it might be, like it just could be the one radical person in the wrong spot who just like does crazy shit like this.
Could be. I don't really know if there's much more to say than other like, you evil bitch, you got off scot-free. We're watching you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're talking about the Omar Mateen thing, maybe?
Yeah, we are.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
There's still people to this day on my Facebook timeline, or not my friends, but friends of friends, trying to talk about, oh, well, he was a closet case.
Either way, he can get fucked.
It's like, okay, I don't care if he was, first of all. First of all, I don't think he was. Second of all, that doesn't really change anything. Third of all, I'm guessing you haven't actually heard that 911 call. Here's a link. But had you guys heard, really just, have you heard that he explicitly said that he didn't want to shoot black people? Did you guys know that?
Yeah,
I did not.
Yeah. There was some black guy who, I think it was a black guy, and he was in the bathroom or some shit right before the shooting. and Omar Mateen went in there and he asked him. He was like, "Hey, are there any black people? Are there any other black people out there?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's probably 5 or 6." And he's like, "Okay, because I don't think, I don't remember what he said exactly, but he's like, oh, well, because I don't want to hurt any black people. Black people have been through enough in this country," or something like that.
Oh, that's okay.
But okay, so um, you guys think that she conspired with him or something, maybe?
I don't know if she conspired. I haven't seen any evidence to that effect, but what I do believe is that she turned a blind eye and possibly tacitly approved of what he was up to, because considering who his father was, considering like the signs leading up to it, it just see. And now that we're talking about how like she obstructed the FBI, she maybe didn't conspire with him, but she definitely did not obstruct him, and she may have aided him through obstructing others.
But she's a woman of color.
Well, then maybe she should go to live with the other women of color and see how they treat her.
That's racist.
Sue me.
Don't worry, all of our existences is racist, and I'm self-hatingly racist or some crap. I don't know.
I don't know.
I can't keep up with all the isms that I'm committing at any given moment.
We're all born and then we all die. Next topic.
mean, it is really suspicious, though. They said that Salman was added as a death beneficiary to her husband's bank account 2 weeks before the attack, and that they had brought up their credit cards
Oh, for real?
leading up to it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a thing. That's really
All right.
suspicious. Like,
Now I'm convinced now, because that's a thing. That is definitely a thing. I mean, like, that means that they talked about it. I mean, like, you don't, because I'm not an expert.
They were young. You don't just start making death plans randomly.
Yeah,
No.
the credit one's more suspicious than the bank account one, because the bank account one's fairly standard practice if you're married, but at 20 whatever he was, that's still a little bit suspicious.
Well, particularly when you consider that he was practicing an ever more observant Muslim, or at least trying to be, because the whole like man managing the money thing is a big part of their culture. So if you start moving money, like letting the woman handle it, that means that you're making plans, and it's unusual. It's something that she would have noticed. It's something that she, assuming that they didn't talk about it at all, which I'm at this point fairly certain that she at least knew, if not directly knew, what he was planning to do. Maybe she didn't know when, maybe didn't she know exactly what, but she knew that he was going to do something, because it's part of their religion, for God's sakes.
Maybe she knew that he was gonna get some sort of gay disease and die.
Well, on the banking front, if you're putting someone on an account, even if it's for only in case of an emergency situation, the other person legally has to consent to it. Because when my grandfather did his will, I had to sign it, my mom had to sign it, and one of my cousins had to all sign his accounts on the in case he dies, like if he gets sick, who's paying for what, or who can authorize shit. So she had to have consented to having an account put in her name.
So yeah, pretty sure that she's definitely involved enough to be guilty of something.
Huh. Okay.
Okay, so want to move on to Craigslist?
Yes.
Yeah, and then I think that we've done enough news articles, and we should talk about the overarching subject that I wanted to talk about, and maybe close out the rest of the show with that.
Okay.
Sure.
There's actually only one article after that, so but that should be it. Anyways, here we are with Craigslist. Okay.
Do you want me to read it, or do you want to read it, or do you want me to just talk about it?
Or just talk about it. I don't really.
Yeah, I'll just talk. I mean, at the I'm not going to talk about it too much, but basically, there was a change in Congress. They changed a aspect of the way internet liability is concerned, whereas websites are now, they can, in order to prevent sex trafficking, websites can now be held legally responsible for sex trafficking if it occurs on their platform, even if it's against their policies and even if they take steps to avoid it. Whereas in the past, there was a ruling that had said, like in the 90s, that websites were just platforms. They were not publishers. Therefore, they were not legally responsible for their content, third-party content. But they've changed that now to discourage sex trafficking, which sounds like a good thing, except that now it means that basically if anything bad happens on any platform, the platform is responsible. So they're all clamping down on it hard. So an example, Craigslist closed its personal section for everyone. Now, how does this affect gay men? Well, I think you all know, like gay men, straight men, bi men, men that seek sex on the, outside of the personal. We go on the internet a lot. A lot of men for M is on the internet. Now a lot of it's on Grindr, but I mean, like I can't tell you how many guys I met on Craigslist when I was younger, like when the internet was a bit younger, and up until recently, it was still a fairly good option. And for people, when you're the only gay guy in a small town, or you're in a closet and there's no gay bar and you're afraid of going out, like this is a major blow to a lot of guys that are going to want to explore and figure out who they are. Because I mean, yeah, you still have Grindr. I'm wondering how long they're going to hold Grindr or some of these other personal services hostage to this. But it's going further than that. Like, so for instance, Google Drive, if you try to upload a porno onto Google Drive, it may not always happen this way, but like if you put a porno on Google Drive and you try to send it to someone, Google won't let you. And then they'll delete it because they have algorithms that can detect what it is. And they say, we do not allow the storage or transmission of erotic materials. And I know that this didn't used to happen because I used to use it for that, not just, for myself, whatever. But yeah, now in order to avoid any kind of impropriety related to sex trafficking, now services like Google, Craigslist are really clamping down on anything to do with sex in their platforms. Microsoft just recently updated their terms of service to say that they can go through Skype and to find offensive content and block, delete, or ban you for it.
Yeah, it is creepy, and it's creepy, and after the way that the Democrats were so Orwellian during this past election, and freaked out all over Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and were finding excuses and little loopholes to screw everybody over. You just have to wonder about these laws and how they could be exploited somewhere down the line politically, weaponized.
I mean, we're already seeing it today. Like today, it's sex trafficking. I mean, like sex trafficking for sex in pornography in America, hate speech in Europe. I mean, they're finding ways for platforms to completely regulate what you can say and what you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, I even 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said this was, tinfoil hat, extremist, like info war nonsense. But now it's happening. It's happening right around us.
Yeah.
And it's going to, like I said, I know maybe it's not, it's maybe a little tangential applying, say, Craigslist or this to gay guys specifically. But again, however much society has progressed, however, far forward we've come, there are still a lot of gay guys and straight closeted men or bisexual men or, that are only able to express themselves in digitally. Dylan Timbrook is saying it's not affecting Craigslist in Australia. Yeah, I imagine it wouldn't because, like I said, it's a U.S. law. But Australia being Australia, they're as bad as they're getting to be as bad as Germany or anywhere else when it comes to hate speech. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's coming to Australia soon.
Oh yeah, Australia is so well behaved. They're such good SJWs down there.
Well, it's not. I don't think it's so much that they're well behaved. It's like they have, but like Australian
people-
liberals are scary.
Yeah. It's Australia. It's a weird place in the way that the citizens are fucking rowdy ass, rocket like beer, fucking alcoholic ass rowdy.
Fun-loving people.
Yeah, they drink a lot of liquor, get in lots of fights, that kind of people, for the most part. But their politicians are fucking obnoxious and they ban everything. Like they ban pop rocks and shit. Like they think that like they heard the rumor that some kid ate a bunch of pop rocks and drank a coke and died and so they banned them or some shit, you know? Like I'm
Yeah.
like pop rocks
They-
are actually banned in Australia.
They actually updated their nursing guidelines just recently, so I heard about this, where like nurses are supposed to, as part of their protocol and training, are supposed to acknowledge their white privilege when dealing with Native, Islander, or Aboriginal people, and the level to which that privilege is identified and comfort given to the person based on that is to be determined not by the nurse or the facility that they work at, but by the patient themselves. Because that's not vague and easy to abuse.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the Aboriginals, I heard that they actually have psychic powers. They have mutant powers.
Well, if they do, they didn't use them very effectively. So yeah, it's an absolute tragedy what happened to the Aboriginals, the Native Americans, like the non-industrialized cultures were they didn't stand a chance against the West, and it sucks. It was a lot of very bad things happened, but you know what? It happened a while ago. We're doing our best now, and yeah, fuck white guilt. I'm over it. Sorry, you're here. You got a lot of things going for you now, and if you want me to feel bad about it, well, as a nurse, I can tell you in detail where to stick it and at what angle.
Well, and we've I would have a lot more propensity to have the white guilt that I, once did, being that I was raised in Seattle and that I had all this
Oh, I
white.
had major white guilt.
Yeah, and I think I would have I would admit to it at a certain point. And then things like Ghazi Kotso and the Evergreen protests happened, and it was like, oh, so I realized what would happen if those people were in power. They got their little audition. Turns out they're all a bunch of fucking cunts. So never mind, like.
Oh yeah, Black Lives Matter cured my white guilt. Is good as penicillin cures gonorrhea, except for that other one.
Because like I think that's like I don't want any sort of white supremacy, and I blah blah blah. I try to be as non-racist as I possibly can, and I've always said that, and I've always and I think that the vast majority of white people are mostly like that, and they would say, like, yeah, white people, they do have a lot of power, and we shouldn't, that's, with great power comes great responsibility. And then all of a sudden, like, people like Ghazi Kotso get a little taste of fame, and then he's talking on Twitter about, like, my mom told me not to try to fight for revolution because we're not going to get anything out of overthrowing white people, but I think we can get everything if we win. And it's just like they do actually want black supremacy, and they do actually want these things that white people allegedly could have, but white people have actively decided to sort of give up. Like, it's like there was never, white people didn't actually have to give up
Anything?
Yeah, like the civil rights era happened, and conditions changed, and a lot of people would say that, but
It was a change in consciousness. It was not a strategic victory. Force was not applied.
yeah, there was force and everything, but there was a lot of compromises and all of that. But white people were still the majority, and they still are, but when a minority sort of is just like, hey, motherfuckers, we're gonna fight you, and we're gonna win, and we're gonna order you around. It's like, First of all, no, you're not. Second of all, obviously, we wouldn't want you to, even if that was a remote possibility. Like, that would be an unjust world. Because you're acting like this, because you're showing, like, you're showing us how you would behave if you were in charge.
Kind of like David Hogg and the non-binary lesbian.
Oh, did you hear about what he did to that Fox News commentator?
Yeah, all I gotta say is that he's 17 and trying to be an adult, like, figurehead speaker, dude. He needs to just grow a spine and get used to getting criticized.
I'm not a big fan of Fox News, but I find the idea that a 17-year-old who would use like the deaths of his classmates to mobilize his Twitter following, which is based entirely on sympathy, to try to destroy someone else's career because they poked fun at him on the internet.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. If you looked at their speeches from that march, it's so accusatory in their body language and their face and the delivery. It's so accusatory. And it's like not flattering. It's not working.
Wait,
Nope.
what were they? How? I didn't explain.
Like, especially Emma Gonzalez would be like, it's not enough. Like, it's not good enough. No more. Right. And like, and they're just like looking and just like staring. And it's just this look of just defiance. And you're right. He did his little thing with the fist, that everyone's been making fun of.
And then like the Fox News lady, she even apologized after like
Laura Ingraham.
That's right. She apologized and he said, "No, I won't accept your apology." And I'm like,
She should take it back.
I would
like,
too.
fuck you. I'll bet you weren't there. No, I'm just gonna decide you weren't there because you're a dick.
Mm-hmm. Fox is definitely not going to do that though, because like Tim Pool had this great video. That's where I heard all this today about how like these kids from Parkland have become untouchable in the eyes of a lot of people, especially on the farther ends of the left. And it's like, okay, you know what? This shitty thing happened at their school, not even directly to these kids. It's a tragedy, yes, but so the fuck what? Tragedy happens to people all the time. It doesn't mean that you have special powers or privileges. Like, you're not special because something terrible happened to you.
Yeah, like even my relatives on my Facebook are like, "Oh, but they're kids. How dare people, criticize them?" It's like, they're being public figures. They're putting themselves out there. They're gonna get it. It's part of the job description.
If they're just kids, then they should stay home and go to school.
Or
If
like
they're not,
well, like I said to one of my friends on Facebook, I'm like, if they're not, if they're too thin-skinned or fragile to handle this, they shouldn't be in the spotlight.
agreed.
Well, and did you guys see the Emma Gonzalez video when they asked there's the accusations that they were bullying Nick Cruz, and her response was,
You didn't
like,
know him.
You didn't know him, right? And it's like, how do you?
What?
And how the fuck else do you interpret that? Like,
Was she?
I mean,
was
I'm
like admitting to be a cry bully.
Yeah.
right. So look at it. But think about how grotesque that is. That idea that like they bully someone into having a mass suicide, and then CNN colludes with them to capitalize on it to become stars when they're like the fucking bullies. Like, this should be a movie.
Yeah.
Good for ratings.
No, he was like really annoying.
Yeah, like that's what I was thinking. Like when she said that, it's like, if he deserved the you guys being cunts to him, then he deserved the shooting. Can you think it through, you morons? Come on, it's like, think it through before you speak. This is why we should listen to you.
Even one of the other teenagers was like, it was hilarious how one of the other teenagers contradicted themselves in the middle, where they were saying like, we're teenagers, we're impulsive, like, we don't know how to make very good decisions. And then the next breath was saying, people need to listen to us because, we're honest, like we're uninhibited, we tell the truth the way it is. It's like, which one is it? Are you qualified or are you unqualified?
Or what was it, David Hogg being like, "Oh, I know how Twitter and an iMessage works. I should be president." It's like, Trump thinks that, so what's your point? And you hate him.
But yeah, with this whole Craigslist thing, what I wonder, like, so obviously, like, the short-term implication is that if you close down Craigslist personals, then like more people would go to different apps or different like dating websites. So I wonder if like the positive thing is that it brings more people into just like more dignified dating apps than fucking Craigslist personals, where they have to like use a little bit more real information and like it's less like hookup-y and less like, you know what I mean? Like Craigslist is kind of a, you know what I mean? Like if I might elevate it a little bit, But then I'm wondering if, like, on the same principle, since people can crack down on Craigslist, are they just going to crack down on all the other ones too?
It's just another form of expression that's lost because of fear.
Well,
Sometimes you don't want to make a connection with someone. Sometimes you just want to hook up.
so okay. Any final words about this, or I think we should move on to the next topic.
I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done too.
Okay. What was the next one? You said there was one more.
Oh yeah, there's.
Is this our Eurovision segment?
No, that would be. Oh yeah, that's right. I thought we weren't doing that because I didn't get a video.
Oh shit! I think I made a video and then I forgot to send it to you.
Oh.
God, that's so dumb. I just spaced it.
No, it's all right.
You space plant yourself.
That's
Anyways,
right.
we're doing the. I wanted to talk about the whole Love Simon thing because I was assuming it was just a shallow cash grab, and so far it's turning out to be true. It is a very shallow cash grab. That was my only comment I wanted to make on that.
The what?
I just
the love.
that-
love Simon.
Yeah.
Oh God. Oh God. I saw it too. Oh my God.
I just watched it recently.
I didn't even want to see it. Like we wanted to see. What did we want to see? We wanted to see. I don't know, some fucking other shit. We wanted to see something at the cheap theater, that some indie movie with some girl with red hair or some shit. I forgot what it was. I don't know.
Some girl with red hair.
I don't know. My mom wanted to see it. I don't really leave the apartment or the house or wherever. That
The yurt that you live in.
my houseboat that I obviously literally live in.
Sailing through Puget Sound.
Yeah. So no, I don't really leave. I do YouTube shit and play fucking Overwatch, and the only time I ever leave is when people bug me to leave. So I have one or two friends that I'll occasionally go and see, but only one of them like actually calls me and is like, "Come over," and I can walk to her house. And sometimes I hang out with Sister Danger, and so. But my mom realizes that this is a problem, so she like takes advantage of it and forces me to go to movies with her and stuff. So she wanted to see some fucking indie ass thing that I was like, okay, whatever, fine, I'll see it. And then it was actually sold out. So we decided to go to the big theater that actually has new movies, and we saw Love, Simon. And she was like, oh yeah, it's some gay thing coming of age. And I was like, perfect, let's fucking go see it. I hated that movie so much. I could tell within 5 minutes that I hated it. And I turned to my mom and I was like, by the way, I hate this movie, but I'm glad that we're watching it because I haven't seen crappy gay cinema in a really long time. And I need to put myself through this to remind myself like what life is. Like, otherwise I become removed from reality. It's sort of, like having to endure the tragedies of existence. And the other thing was that I thought was really funny. So if anyone hasn't seen the movie, I'm not going to give away any of the plot line like there's any sort of
Oh, excuse me.
like there's any sort of deep plot line. There isn't. But as you can see from the photo, the cast is it's very multiracial, I guess is what you would say. And it's very, very. I don't want to say it's SJW because it's not preachy in any sort of SJW type of way, but it is very conveniently diverse and stuff. And after it was over, my mom, who is kind of an SJW, she was like a Ms. Magazine subscribed feminist in the fucking 1980s and shit, and 70s, 80s, and she actually was probably kind of obnoxious, but it was different back then. There was reasons to sort of be like that a little bit, whereas now it's like feminism is blatantly the status quo. My mother was like, well, that was the most PC thing I've ever seen. Like, she was cringing at how PC it was.
I was cringing at the overly clever dialogue. But there were, yeah. No, I mean, like we saw it. It was cute. I mean, it was obnoxiously cute in a way.
Fucking hated it.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest issue with it, honestly, was just, and I'm not going to give any spoilers either, but um, yeah, it was definitely an attempt at representing an idealized multicultural high school filled with sexual. Actually, there was very little sexual tension. It was mostly just a bunch of stereotypes and, like I said, chirpy, overly clever, sanitized dialogue.
It was like Richard Spencer's fucking worst nightmare.
Yeah, UN high school.
Yeah. I honestly went into it expecting it to be a shallow cash grab, and I mind you, I'm comparing this to Netflix's Death Note as being like what the worst a shallow cash grab could possibly be, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it would.
It wasn't terrible. No,
It's
it was okay.
I mean, compared to Death Note, it's a 7 out of 10.
Okay, well, I didn't see Death Note, and I watched some of the series on Netflix, but I didn't see the movie. But
They have nothing to do with each other.
I like most movies I see at the theater. Like, you know, like I enjoyed Black Panther. Black Panther was actually a semi decent movie.
Mm-hmm.
I
But
just saw that. It's hilarious. I waited so long. I loved that I didn't hate it.
but I like movies that other people don't like a lot of the time. Like I actually really liked the Ghost in the Shell movie. A lot actually. And
I still haven't seen it.
It's good. It's visually stunning, and the audio is really cool. Like the score is really cool, and it has the the important parts of the plot are there. There's some pretty cringe characters, like the portrayal of a few characters is just like, okay, why'd they do it like that? But overall, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. I think that it should be a midnight on Fridays kind of a thing at hipster theaters, you know. But I also like Suicide Squad. Uh, the fact that you guys didn't hate this as much as I do makes me really wonder about how I've definitely said that I should never review movies for people because they would hate me for telling them what I tell them.
Maybe that's something we should consider getting into Gaytriarchy film reviews, where we just tear movies I think we represent a fairly diverse opinion group when it comes to like artistic taste. I was a film studies major. Prince, you're a writer, and definitely like the hipster intelligentsia crowd. Bacon, you're salted meat, and Space Pan, you're Space Pan.
I was a music major too.
Oh, okay. The MRA, but
all the most useful things.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, you didn't study lesbian dance theory.
I did study Dalcroze Eurythmics.
Ooh. Well, now that we're talking about lesbian dance theory, Prince, you want to go to what the final overarching theme is?
Yeah. So this is just something that I thought that we should start exploring, and is obviously going to come up in future installments of the podcast.
Our desire for dick pics?
Which is that I think that we should just have a sort of an overview of whether or not we think that feminism has ever benefited the gay community in any sort of way at all. And the obvious answer is, of course, no, we don't actually really think that. But I think that we should be as charitable as possible and try to come up with ways in which maybe it either did or seemed that it did in some sort of way at some time. Because if we can do that, then we can better understand the minds of 99% of gay men who do self-identify as feminists for some fucking reason. And I think that it would be good to try to think about like what it is. Like, okay, the main
You're talking
reason.
about Sorry, I was going to say, it sounds like you're talking about what Mouthy Buddha talks about, which is the steel man argument, which is you attempt to argue against the strongest, most idealized version of your opposing viewpoint.
Yeah. Forget all the stupid bullshit that you hear, which, like what you would mostly hear about why should gay men be feminists, it's things that don't make any sense. Like, well, all homophobia is rooted in misogyny. Okay, that's not true. Or well, because feminists did all the work during the AIDS crisis. They took care of gay men. Also not true. It wasn't fucking feminists. It was lesbians. Feminist organizations couldn't give two shits. So like, and also the that's not the same people who are abusing us today. I'm not sure if you've noticed. Like, it was.
That's sort of like the feminist equivalent to like the feminist version of the reparations argument. We did this. We did this back then, therefore you owe us now. I wasn't alive during then. You still owe.
Well, and it's like, feminist isn't a type of person. It's a label that some people choose to describe themselves as. But like, sure, some lesbians did, but like not all lesbians, and fucking certainly straight, non-binary, fucking identified 24-year-old girls don't get to start ordering me around because of what some lesbians did in the 80s. Like, that's absurd.
But her hair is blue.
So, but I think that we should explore a little bit about, is there anything that has made sense, and has offered, or at least somewhat been offered to the gay male community by way of feminism at some time. And I was able to come up with one thing that I think that this is debatable, and please do debate this, but an argument that I can at least sort of see. And this was coming from so the sociopath guy that I used to be friends with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I used to be friends with this guy who's like basically a sociopath, antisocial personality disorder. He doesn't have any ability to have empathy for people. He's never made an apology in his life. He's never done anything that wasn't selfish in his life. He's also extraordinarily effeminate. And he was also abused by his father, quite pretty bad, when he was, I think, very, very little. And he was always afraid of males. And one of the things about our relationship was that, like, I always kind of like stuck up for him when kids would bully him, because I knew him in grade school, and so like all through school I would like stick up for him if kids would bully him. And he he got used to that, and then his only friends were females, and then he ended up in adult life gravitating towards far leftist activism, and he was able to swallow all of the feminist bullshit. He never really got into it because he didn't like the feminists, because he doesn't really like anyone. He's a sociopath, It's not like he was like, oh, these are my friends. He mostly would just kind of make fun of them, but he would agree with them when they would hate on males, right? Like, he would be like, yeah, men suck. Yeah, there's a patriarchy. Yeah. Like, that was easy for him to agree with. But what I think it really was more was that he, being a feminine male, I think it was easy for him to feel as if he was one of the guys that felt that that homophobia against gay men came from the same source as misogyny. And he felt that way because of his own the fact that he was effeminate, and I'm not as effeminate as him. I certainly don't look as gay. I don't, and he talks a lot more gay than I do. He actually has a legitimate lisp, so he talks like this, and like just a little. Not he talks like Mr. Slave from fucking South Park, like, actually.
Jesus
And
Christ.
yeah, he sounds like Mr. Slave, and so he uh he was able to sort of swallow that line that you know that homophobia and misogyny all come from this sort of patriarchal force of, you know, straight guys who hate things that are feminine because reasons. And that's how feminists can get their foot in the door, is by preying upon gay guys like that. But what I don't think that that is valid. I don't think that's valid. But what I do think is valid is the 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 notion of that feminists. I know that they can't be the only people that have done this, but they have to be a big, maybe the big proponents of people who've done this, which has been to deconstruct gender roles and to try to say that gender roles are an outdated concept and that kind of a thing. And when it comes to gay men, and it comes to the notion that like gay men don't have to necessarily be super masculine, and gay men can be girly and dress up, you know, in drag or in half drag or blah 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 blah. Um, that does actually offer at least a bit of peace of mind to gay men. If you know, like there is no really great reason that gay guys I mean, there's not necessarily a super great reason why people should guys should be super masculine in terms of like masculine stereotypes. There's definitely sometimes you got to take care of business in a few ways, and you got to be a man. Like that's just the fact of life, you know. It's if for no other reason but because fucking women will make you be a man when you have to. Like, help, he grabbed my purse, aren't you gonna do anything, motherfucker? But like but with gay men almost especially, they're if gay men just walk around with endless shame for kind of acting a little bit girly, that's bad. That's a negative thing, you know. Like gay guys should get over any sort of just inherent shame about not being super masculine. I don't see why any guy should. Don't expect to like necessarily get a whole ton of dates, but you know, like and feminism did kind of do the majority of work popularizing the notion that sometimes gender roles are unnecessary. So I can give feminism that much, to a certain degree, though they take it too far and they mix it with a lot of lies, and then they and then or it's kind of like a spoonful of sugar makes the poison go down kind of a situation where they'll tell people that, and then they'll get it as a way to say that, you know, gender shouldn't exist, and it's like, okay, whoa, slow down and say that I'm still a dude, you know. So
I think I agree with what you're saying. Essentially, I think if we have to give them anything, which is distasteful, but if we do have to give them anything, it's that it is important to understand that there are situations and there are people that the rules don't the rules and the roles and the way that things typically are don't always or necessarily apply to. I think where they go wrong is assuming that it's a global model, that because there are some people that don't quite fit, that the entire rubric is wrong. But again, if we have to give them anything, it's in recognizing that there are gaps. There are gaps in the rubric that we don't always talk about if we're concerned with larger group stereotypes and structures.
I mean, if I'm gonna be really charitable to feminists, like I would give them that there's a way of looking at it where you basically associate feminism with a different meaning, like you define it by the action, which is what a lot of people do with men's rights activism. They say that it's something that you do, and if a person does it, then it's something that you perceive and then define. Like the use of it as a label and as a self-definition is technically irrelevant in that sense of it.
Yeah.
But if you go by that definition, then all of the anti-feminists are the real feminists. So it's not really taking on the issue. Like, so if we're going to talk about that's just one thing I'll give them though. Like if I had to call myself a
wait.
feminist, that's how I would
Hold
do
on.
it.
Hold on. I just want to say for the audience, I don't think that most people probably just followed what you just said, so I want to reiterate it because I'm pretty sure I followed it. So what he's saying, he's he's describing this phenomenon of labels and word definitions and prescriptive labels and descriptive labels. So being an MRA, being a men's rights advocate or a men's rights activist is an action. It's something that you do. It's something that you tangibly do in the real world. And calling somebody an MRA is just a description of their action. Feminist is a prescriptive label, which in the dictionary says equality for some reason. Therefore, the people who actually do stuff for equality are the MRAs, because that's where the problems are. That's what you just said, basically, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what I was saying. So, but since we're going to talk about feminists as described, I'm going to go by the, how it's actually done, which is that we're going to be referring to self-described feminists, SJWs, those kind of people. So a couple of things I have to take away from is this idea that they challenged gender roles and deconstructed that, because that's really only half true. At no point did they really deconstruct the masculine gender role, because what's always been wrapped up with it, like when Karen Strong calls it Marxism in panties, it's very, very accurate. And like that's one of the reasons that the communism and the leftism is so endemic to it from the economic standpoint, is that they rely on the government so much to do the whole provider and do the whole male role. And that requires men to not give up their gender role. And it requires their gender role to be rendered invisible. So when feminists go about and do other things, they actually are reinforcing the gender role. They're essentially taking the weight of both gender roles and shifting it onto the male half of it. So it's not even that they erased gender roles. It seems that they liberated women at men's expense. So like I can't even give them that to be charitable.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, that's such a long okay. I don't. I almost had something to say about that, but then I realized I had 15 things to say about that, and I forgot all of them.
There's just no way to pay for all the shit feminist demands without keeping the male gender role. Everything they want reinforces the male gender role. In fact, all they do, their definition of liberating women from the male gender role is just letting women also take on the male gender role. So now we have men are men and women get to choose.
Yeah. But how does this relate to gay men, do you think?
Well, gay men lose out, right? Because gay men you're both men, like you're men, like it affects you because you're men, I guess, and from the intersectional standpoint.
Yeah, but like I wanted you to be, and I'll get to you, Bacon. But I want you to. You said you were going to be charitable towards what the question was. What has feminism done for gay men lately? And you said you were going to be charitable, but I didn't quite hear it personally.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess the problem is that the way I see it is that there's not a single way that feminism affects me as a gay person that would even be like in the top 10. Like all the most important things are just because male, and that really is true like across the board. Like so I guess that's kind of where the criticism is rooted. Toward gay men in particular, though, I mean, if you want to see an example of like destigmatizing male sexuality, in particular towards like the kind of sex that gay men are more likely to have, Turd Flinging Monkey has done more to do that, right? Because he does these like product reviews where he like reviews like butt plugs and shit, and like funny fucking like double-sided like pocket pussy things. Like it's like super fucking funny. I don't know why I watch it, but
I should watch him.
It's fucking funny as hell. But he's like black pill fucking MGTOW shit, but like he's doing the feminist job better.
Can you explain to me what the black pill even is? Because I don't actually know what that is.
It's just a colloquial term for like people who are like quote unquote misogynistic. And the joke is that like people who are black pill, they're just like they've lost hope with women in general. Like they just like, oh, like women can't, we can't have an egalitarian society, because like it's just not going to work. We have to go back to traditionalism. That's kind of like a more black pill approach. So that's how I use it anyway. Like kind of, it's basically like the red pill gets so deep dark red that it turns black.
It's like clotted and rotting.
Exactly. It's like a clotted rotted. Yeah. So the joke, and it's also kind of like edgelord. Like, oh, you're fucking black pill now. You're just like edgelord.
I think I'm too old to get like that. I think that if I was in my like mid 20s, I and was just getting fed up with like stupid bullshit social demographics for the first time, I would maybe be like that. But I've seen this kind of thing manifest itself in like different ways, you know. Like I went through having to deal with the Burning Man people. It was just a mind fuck of like mass cultural stupidity. And it was every bit as intense as the feminists. Like it was these people truly believing in this utopian future, except for then it was the year 2012. We were all going to die, and now it's we're going to live in this matriarchy communist utopia, and it's all going to be great. And anyhow, so bacon, what do you think?
Well, what I was going to say about why feminism is specifically bad for the gay bi demographic is one, gay men and, well, mostly gay men have slightly higher than average incomes even compared to straight men. And gay men don't always get to take advantage of the tax cuts for kids as easily as lesbians would. So technically speaking, we would be paying more in taxes and earning more. So in a way, we are funding it, even though there's infinitesimally far fewer gay men than there are straight men. And also, when it comes to all the LGBT organizing bullshit, gay men still are expected to do a lot of the work. Like, all the heavy lifting's done by men. It's not, lesbians might be taking credit and sitting in some, like, director position, but the people doing the most of the work are the men.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, like, there'll be like some board of directors for, San Francisco Pride, and like, it will be 9 people, and 6 out of the 9 will be lesbians, and they'll go up there and say like, gay white men are overrepresented, and blah, like they will do that. Like, it's it's absurd, and you talk to yeah. Uh, I'm sure we've all encountered that if you've spent any time with the community.
Yeah, it's very much the norm.
Can you think of anything good though?
Um, Other than some of them kept all the shit going when AIDS happened, but that's not in my lifetime, so meh.
Yeah, when people were literally dying on their doorsteps because they all lived in the same neighborhoods. Like people were like rotting in their gutters. They decided that, okay.
I guess
Fine.
I guess you can say they manned up when they actually had to, but if they don't, they prefer not to.
If you're gonna make the political all personal.
Maybe they were squatting at some rich gay guy's house and he came down sick and oh shit, I'm gonna lose my apartment.
Or just simple, wait a minute, this community center that I'm leeching off of, you mean it'll shut down if no one's working here? Shit, I actually have to, keep this shit going. Where am I going to have my potlucks?
Who's going to organize, do all the decorating? I will tell.
Sorry.
I would say all I was going to say is there are no lesbian interior designers. Just no, there are none. I used to do that for a living. Never met one, and if I did, I didn't believe her.
The thing
Lesbians have bad taste.
The thing is, I really so for all the blathering on that feminists and lesbians will do about how gay men owe feminists for all of eternity because of the AIDS crisis. Where's those awesome testimonials from the women who did all the work? Like where's the autobiographies written by the women about like what they were doing, and like because I've never fucking even seen them. Like it's hard to find any sort of like actual, like, okay, obviously there's not really good testimonies coming from the gay men because they're all dead, about like what actually happened. There's not a whole lot of that. There's a little bit of that, but there's supposedly that all the lesbians did everything. Well, okay, well, why didn't they tell the tale? Like what?
They're keeping the records in the same place where they keep the records of all of the trans women of color that were actually doing all the work during Stonewall and the civil rights movement.
Yeah, the
well,
Kangs.
I know personally my mom did stuff. My mom was like, yeah, I'm doing this because it's my friends. Now I'm fucking off back to work because I have bills to pay.
Okay. Your mom was a lesbian?
No, she was just friends. She was, well, just friends and not really a feminist. But the people that did it weren't really feminists.
Yeah.
At least from my like immediate family circle, it was mostly just people who are like, "Hey, these are our friends and family that are dying."
Yeah. 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 I mean, I've heard from gay guys who are well over 50, probably in their 60s. I didn't ask how old he, that this guy was, but he said that that lesbians explicitly stopped identifying as feminists because of the fact that the feminist organizations didn't care about the AIDS crisis, and they thought that that was, uh, you know, injustice.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, obviously there's that, and I wanted. Did any of you get the chance to read the book, or the article that I mentioned? Dangerous Trends in Feminism.
I did not,
Neither
but I
did
will
I.
read it for next week.
Okay,
I
yeah,
was
maybe we should talk about that more next week because that's a good, just sort of a general topic that we could go on about. Um, but
oh,
can you get? Oh,
I was gonna say one thing I wanted to bring up just about the channel, but I can do that later.
yeah, yeah. I want to say that, like, I do relating to people is very important to me. You know, I don't want to. Uh, if I have, you can see live streams with me where I had a live stream where I talked to some Antifa guy for like 3 hours, but I talked to him like he was my friend, you know? And I had the same one with some young woman who self-identified as a feminist, who, by the way, the next day wrote me and said that she was going to come up with a new label for herself and that she wasn't going to call herself a feminist anymore. Um, and I, so obviously I was pretty nice, you know? I like trying to relate to people, and it's really, really important to me to not just be a gig towel entirely. Nothing against people who want to be gig towels, uh but
Represent.
but to try to meet the gay guys halfway who think that there's something for them in feminism. And I want to know why they're thinking that. You know? Like, it's I know that mostly it's because they've been lied to and guilt tripped. Like, I know that's mostly what it is, but I have to use every bit of my mind to come up with every possible, like, I got to play 12D chess with these motherfuckers. So I got to know what they're thinking, and I feel like there's a big probability that the one thing I could think of was that feminists aim to to validate their femininity and say that it's okay for them to be a little bit femme, and they feel that that both heterosexual reality and the gay male community shames them for that. And so one of the things that we should try to do at the Gaytriarchy is to try to be like, look, we don't care if you're femme either. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's totally fine. Like, listen to the way that I and Spacepan talk. Like, we're totally, kind of talk pretty gay. That's not a problem.
I
It's
think you
just
talk gayer than I do.
Well, not at that particular moment. He didn't.
God damn it.
Shade,
No.
shade has been thrown.
but regardless, either of us, you can tell that we're gay from how we talk. And um, it, it's it's absolutely not my prerogative, certainly. And I have full veto power for this fucking podcast as far as I'm concerned. So it's not our prerogative to shame any guys for being feminine in any way. That's has nothing to do with, like,
No.
this podcast was inspired by Honey Badger Radio. Like, I was thinking, that would be really cool if there was sort of a gay guy version of that. And so
I think the most important thing, I mean, what you were saying earlier about GigTal, and granted, it's still in its protean stages, although it's definitely, I've been interested at the rate of growth, but at it's a spectrum. Like I think that to a large part, like for instance, Feral Cats talked about how for him, Gigtao is about reclaiming masculinity, like making sure that it's been, that it's a part of your life as a man. And there is something to be said for that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's nothing there isn't anything wrong with just being yourself. And I think that's the most important thing about Gaytriarchy is telling gay guys, and even within Gigtown, if Gigtown means anything to me, only one thing, it's that you decide what being gay means. No one else gets to tell you that. Not the feminists, not the lesbians, not
straight people,
not the straight people, not even other gay guys.
Yeah.
You do you, and be happy.
But if you won't munch a guy's rug, you're not really gay. I'm saying this sarcastically, of course.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, we're just getting into like definitions. Like that's more of a thing of practice than theory. But
like, yeah, simultaneously, every man needs to man up occasionally. As much as
it's part of us.
Yeah, and it will be demanded of us.
Mm-hmm.
It will be. Otherwise, we're going to be fucking homeless. That's just how it is. But at the same time, I have no problem fagging out. I enjoy it, and I enjoy doing it with other guys. Like we call it in the gay male community, having a kiki.
Oh, is that what that means?
Yeah, just a little. What?
Just the song.
Yeah, the Scissor Sisters.
I don't know the song. I know that there is a song, but
by the Scissor Sisters. It's hilarious.
I've just never really listened to it.
It's actually quite good. I think you would like the Scissor Sister. I mean, I don't know your musical taste, but
I literally know Jake Shears.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, then you have no excuse. You must. But I've been known to get more flamboyant when I'm either around other gay guys, or if I've been drinking, or if I'm just having a really good time. But again, it's like you can be all kinds of different ways and act all kinds of different ways. But at the end of the day, you still have to accept, the parts of you that are there. And I mean, if you're a naturally flamboyant person, then that's fine. I think the only time it really becomes an issue, and where you maybe should think about it more, is if you are acting flamboyant because you think you have to.
Yeah.
Because that's expected of you, because you're gay. In nursing, an interesting... I feel kind of sheepish talking about this, because I don't like being one of those people talking about, like, I experience homophobia at the workplace. But if I'm going to talk about it at all, I'll say this. Like, so in nursing in California, there's a lot of Filipinos. And Filipinos are great people. They're hardworking. They take care of their family. I'm not saying bad things about Filipinos. But they have, especially if they've recently come from the Philippines, they bring over some of their cultural norms. And they have quite a few gay people in the Philippines. Bakla. I believe that's Tagalog for faggot. So I always tell them whenever I meet any Filipino nurses, like, oh yeah, I know Tagalog. Yeah, it's like ate, which is like sister. It's a polite address. Kuyo for brother, and bakla, and they're like, oh, don't say that. But it cracks them up. But they expect you to be a girl whenever I've told any Filipino person that hasn't been in the United States for a long time, or is just spends all their time around Filipinos and only Filipinos, as a lot of them tend to do, they'll be like, really? But you don't act like girl. You're not woman. You like, you strong and tall. And I'm like, well, yeah, and it's like the other. So that I wouldn't call that homophobia. That's more just like misunderstanding of like our culture and how gay men can be men and also flamboyant. The one time that was kind of related, but I'll tie it up. Like basically, like sometimes I've known women in different jobs I've had where I think that we're like work friends. We'll get comfortable with each other, and sometimes I point out like, oh, that guy's cute, and they laugh. It's like, oh, you're so funny. And one time I walked. She was like some 40-year-old woman. I don't think she meant anything bad, but she's like, you're so funny. And I turned to her. I'm like, how was I being funny? And I
By the way,
wasn't trying to.
give Dylan Tilbrook a wrench if you
Yeah,
can.
he's been asking for it for a while.
Sorry, I thought you were done.
No problem. But yeah, I mean, like that, and that's like the only time that I've ever experienced something which I don't know if I'd even call that homophobia, but it's like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like if it's where you all of a sudden you realize that like something weird just happened when you think that you have a relationship with someone and you share that you know part of yourself, like a deeper part of yourself, like, oh, that person is attractive, and the other person, the only thing they can do is like giggle or think that you're either joking or like I don't know. That's
I'm
kind of a
not
rant,
sure I
but
follow the entire dynamic of that story.
yeah, I might have just drifted off somewhere. Basically, like for some people, like you know, like for some, like when you tell them that everything's fine until you try to tell them that about your attraction, and then like I guess they can't. That's when they're uncomfortable with it. Like they can't process it, and so all they can do is just say like, "Oh, you're funny," when you're not joking. You're just being honest. But I may have wandered off and just lost track of what I was talking about. So move on.
Well, yeah, I wanted to mention that there is that phenomenon of when you're a gay guy. You were saying that um the problem with gay male femininity, it becomes a problem when
Mm,
you feel like it's expected of you.
yes.
Um, and that's a definite thing because it's something that I run into a lot because when you so I've talked about this actually on the stream. One of the reasons that I sound as effeminate as I do when I talk, I believe, is because I look rather mean in person. I don't like to like I have different photograph angles. Like you guys have seen my photos. So I don't normally post pictures of like my sort of like resting asshole face that I normally have on
That's quite a
Facebook.
description. Resting asshole. That's sounds like a screen name.
But no, I have kind of, a bit of a resting bitch face thing going on, except for I'm like 6'2" and like, pretty big. So, um,
I'm just
I,
imagining a face that rests into the shape of an asshole, and I can't stop laughing. Sorry.
well, I learned at a pretty early age that if I sounded feminine, that I would be non-threatening to kids in school. They wouldn't, think that I was like wanting to fight them or some crap like that. And, I got a little bit of crap in middle school, but then I went to high school and it was like all the girls wanted to be my friend. I made friends with all the senior girls when I was a freshman. So I just kind of went with the gay voice, I never had any motive to like not. And uh that was an only semi subconscious choice. But what's weird is that I noticed that people do have an expectation out of me. Like, um, I know that there's certain gay guys who are femme that feel like they're supposed to be the mascot of their friend group. Like they don't ever get to be like if they hang out with a bunch of straight people, they're expected to just be fun and silly and make silly jokes and almost like they're not a real person. And
Their cartoon character.
yeah, and I think that that can definitely happen. And every now and again you hang out with too many straight people as a gay guy, and I think that they do expect you to be like that. And if conflict ever arises, they don't expect you to like assert yourself. And then and especially honestly, I hate saying this, but because like as much as I I've spent a lot of time focusing on my channel on straight, feminists, females, and how crappy they are to gay men. But straight guys, when somehow a conflict arises and the guy who sounds kind of gay stands up to a straight guy and is like, no, I'm not gonna take your shit, like I don't give a fuck, they flip their shit. They have no idea what to do, that a gay guy is like standing up for himself. And it makes them furious, and like all of a sudden they're calling you a faggot and like all this stuff. That happens, and it's a weird thing where it's like, okay, so you're gonna attack me for being gay, but I'm pretty sure that you kind of wanted me to be like, you were expecting me to like be this like feminine, weak character. It's a very strange thing. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. Like they have they're expecting that, again, they're treating you like a character, not a person. So they're assuming that, okay, gay person, like I'm going to behave like the straight bully, and you're going to do this because that's what happens because you are gay. That's all you can do. And when you break the narrative of like, the weak, timid, like, oh my God, no, someone help me, where are the lesbians? Like, when you break that routine, it angers them because they were expecting to get like a cheap victory out of you, and all of a sudden they're going to have to work for it. And especially if they're around other straight bully kind of people, like if they're like, damn boy, you let a faggot talk to you like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, like just like Feral Cat talks about, it's homophobia is predicated a large in some areas on the idea that if you're a gay man, you're not a real man. You're weak. You're feminine. I don't think it's even the femininity. It's that you're weak. You're not a real man in whatever shape that takes.
Yeah, they don't expect the guy to do anything. Like they expect, like, and I think that there's a few things where that comes from, but I think one of the most pragmatic realities that leads to that is that gay guys, for the most part, learn to avoid fights when people first start suspecting guys of being gay. Like they kind of act gay, or they're just, they don't date girls and it's high
They
school. Yeah, they know that a guy's gay. Maybe he's actually out of the closet in high school, right? Gay guys learn to avoid fights because they're always going to be outnumbered. So they don't fight back. They just avoid them entirely because it's just the best course of action. And straight guys get used to that. They get used to the gay guy never fights back. Well, yeah, no shit, because there's always like 5 of you and 1 of him, and like that's and so when a gay guy does have the more assertive tendencies and will stick up for himself, it's a very but at the same time, another thing is I think that like if you were and I heard this from a gay male friend that lived in the South and is black and went to a black school, and had 4 older brothers that were all straight, so was actually good at fighting, and broke a kid's arm in middle school in a fight. And they nobody ever fucked with my friend anymore. And it wasn't simply just because that's kind of crazy, but it was also because that kid was humiliated beyond belief, like wearing around a cast for a few months after getting in a fight with a gay guy. And so it's kind of like, can you imagine, like everybody was like, oh no, you better not get in a fight with that guy, because if you lose, that's how humiliating it's going to be.
You're the guy that got beat by a gay guy.
Yeah.
There's one of my back in the earlier days of YouTube, before I was watching a lot of it, I remember one of my favorite was this video that went viral at the time. I forget what it was called, but there was like this wannabe gangster fellow who was fucking with this very flamboyant kind of, not a drag queen, but a very ultra femme black guy on the train or bus or whatever, and he's like calling him names, try to get in his face, and the really flamboyant black guy just whooped the living shit out of him. I mean, like, and we're not even talking about like, he was just like punching and knocking the way out. I mean, we're talking about like he punched him, knocked him down, and then just started slapping him, just outright slapping him. And the guy was just like cowering in the chair. And the people around him were laughing. They were laughing their asses off. And I mean, I don't like violence. I really don't. But again, it speaks to what you're talking about, how like if the fact that like this guy was getting his ass beat, I don't know if people would get beat in that town very often, but the fact that it was this uber flamboyant black guy who in heels just whooping the shit out of this guy that thought he was so tough, it was a source of amusement.
To bring it back to feminism, is just like I don't think that feminists have anything to add to the like feminists. All they can do is offer little, I don't know, emotional affirmations to gay guys that feel ashamed of being femme. But that's as far as it goes. Like, it's like, you don't have to feel bad about being femme. We like it. Okay, cool, Miss non binary lesbian. Thanks a bunch. I feel better now that we're hanging out. But, like, the second he goes back out on the street, he might, somebody might throw a beer bottle at him from a car and call him a faggot, It's
And also
like,
she's only saying that too as long as he is like a good gay. If he's a feminine gay that says like, well, I voted for Trump because of X, X, and X, then she's like, you fucking faggot traitor.
yeah, that too. But like feminists can offer femme gay guys a little bit of peace of mind around being femme and like make them feel slightly better about themselves, and like I can understand how that's enticing. Like I can understand the urge for guys that can't be anything but femme. Like I choose to talk gay. I've taken acting. I cannot talk gay if I try really fucking hard. I don't try. But but there's some guys who just can't help it. Like there's some guys that you look at them and you see that they have hips, like female hips, you know what I mean? And like I with those guys, it's like I can understand why they would the feminist rhetoric around gender deconstruction, being femme is appealing to them. But at the same time, are those girls going to ever tell him, yeah, well, you also have to be a man and you have to occasionally stick up for yourself and defend yourself and know when to do that, know when it's appropriate? I don't think that they can. I don't think that they're ever going to offer that to femme gay guys. Like, I don't think that they're ever going to, help train him to know the difference of like, when to avoid fights and when to say enough is enough. Let's throw down.
If they learn how to defend themselves, then they'll actually fight the feminists when they get pissed off at them.
I don't think that those women can help him for two reasons. One, not many women know how to help men be men. Some do. Some are very good at it. But a lot of women don't really know. And if you're a woman that thinks that masculinity is in of itself some sort of problem or, a vice or toxic element, then you're definitely never going to be one of the few women that understands men well enough to tell them how, like, to give them good, usable advice. All you can do is just tell them what they want him to do and how to act. But they don't really care about what his life is like. He's just a pet to them. He's, a project. It's like they're like on the softer political end of like those stereotypical Valley girls. It's like, oh, I love my gays. I need a new gay.
Are you saying that feminists don't understand the lived experiences of gay men?
Yeah. Oh wow! You totally SJW Jedi mind tricked me. Yes, I mean I think lived experiences is a really stupid term, but I mean let's put it another way. I think that feminists lack the empathy and understanding of masculinity outside of a political context to give any kind of usable advice to men.
Yeah, no,
That's the issue, though.
yeah, I know what you're saying. I make fun of the term lived experiences all the time in my videos. It's become like my little catch. I always say it in the same way. I'm always like, but my lived experiences. Okay, I do kind of a Martin Luther King voice with it for some reason.
Lived experience.
But No, there's truth behind the notion of lived experiences. It doesn't mean that because of the fact that you're a gay man, then you know everything about being gay ever in every discussion ever. Like that would be absurd. And that's what SJWs do, like especially when it comes to racial minorities. Like they'll just be like, well, I'm a person of color, therefore I have lived experiences with oppression, therefore I'm always right. Like they do that. But what you're saying about gay men and feminists and trying to, them talking about men and blah 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 blah, it does apply to the lived experience thing. Saint of Bacon was sort of making a joke, but what he's saying was true.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, and I wasn't dismissing what you said, Bacon. I was more chafing at the terminology. But
Oh,
yes.
I was too. I was actually trying to be sarcastic and right at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, perfect.
Well,
You know
quit
what,
trying to eat your
though?
cake.
Since I
What?
do have a philosophy degree, I did study some feminist epistemology. I will say that there is an argument to be made. It's not a very strong argument, but you could argue that, for example, is this idea that the oppressed actually do have access to the experience of the oppressors, which is that,
Oh
for
yeah.
example, in a male-dominated society, yeah, you have to so-called like act by the male rules, and the
Yeah.
male
It's the dominant
maintains
culture.
everything.
It's the dominant cultural narrative. Therefore, you know all about it because it's pervasive, because it's on television, it's in the books, it's taught as history, and so therefore the oppressed is forced to know all about it because they have to. They have to know about it to get by in their everyday lives. Their every day is a fight for survival for the oppressed, and they have to play by the master's rules, and so they know everything.
Yep, because they know themselves and they know that exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
and it's all weasel words. You know, the whole shared experience thing. It's just there's an incommunicable gap between your empirical, like what you experience, and like words, and it's just taking advantage of that and applying it in one direction only.
I'm tempted to turn my webcam on and dox myself just so you can see my eyes rolling back into the back of my skull and pointing out the back of it. But it's that idea. So I know I know that you're bringing it up as a weak argument, but even hearing it, it's just like, oh my god! If I cringe any harder, I'm literally going to collapse in on myself.
You had never heard that argument before?
I've heard it before, but like I try to avoid it, and I've never heard it phrased quite that. I've never heard it phrased quite that succinctly and concentrated. It's usually with a lot more SJW psychobabble. But yeah, I hate that argument so much.
Yeah, usually they ease it in. They don't just like usually just shove it all in there at once.
Mm-hmm. You didn't use any lubricant, and I chafed.
I have to say, like, when so I had heard it before. Yeah, there was a lot of mumbo jumbo when I think I must have heard it in college, from like the two or three feminist professors that I had, but I didn't like them. Like, I was always pretty good in school in the way that I could always get, high B's or better on my papers just because my teachers just generally liked my papers, even if they're entirely bullshit. I didn't care, and I like, I would be like, okay, I'm supposed to have read this book and write a paper on it. I'm supposed to write a 3-page paper, blah blah blah. I'll just open up to a certain page and select something, and then insert. Well, when they said this, like I would do that, and then somehow still get, so. I mostly just did not pay attention to the classes from the feminist professors because I was busy with my other classes that I actually liked. Um, and I remember like learning about the oppressed and like having to read Audre Lorde and like crap like that, which I actually did read because I had some feminist friend that told me it was really good. And that was um, very untrue. But what but that was back in the early 2000s when um the intersectional feminist thing hadn't taken over all of reality yet, and it just seemed like these like wacky people that I just didn't really think were cool. um and the thing was, um the people who were into it were like pretentious white women that you could ignore basically unanimously, right? um well, ever since about 2012, um, and this sounds kind of, you know, bad, uh, but I'll just say people who were obviously not very intelligent. I think that there was a lot of, uh, I think that when Obama changed it, people started getting a lot more money to go to college. All of a sudden, people could take out student loans and go to college very, very easily, and everybody was doing it. And now we have this major crisis of, like, it was a Ponzi scheme, you know, and all sorts of lower class financially people ended up going to college, and they were all on social media thinking that they knew shit, and they were all talking about that stupid ass, like, I know more than you because I'm a person of color and I'm oppressed and you're white, so I know. And but they're dumb, like they're not smart,
Mm.
and so they would have these, like, you know, they would try to like consolidate the argument into uh, a paragraph and a half, and it was like their little pathetically, you know, poorly worded version of it. So I've seen the worst version of that argument. Like, I've seen like the argument that their dumbass professor told them, and then their interpretation of it as written on Facebook over and over. And it's sad, really, that there's these people that believe in this, that have been, you know, indoctrinated into this, and they're that dumb, and they truly believe it. Like, they think that they're smarter than I am.
Well, you are a man.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're kind of hitting the 2.5 hour mark. So do you want to
Yeah.
start wrapping this up?
I think that we absolutely should.
Okay, so any final thoughts, and then we shill our stuff.
Well, I don't really have any final thoughts, and I don't really need to show anything.
Okay,